And we're live.
Welcome back to another episode of The Runway. Sorry, guys. Today we've had some technical difficulties. I think there's a lot going on with the X servers. Not sure what's happening, but we couldn't get our stream going for a good 30 to 45 minutes. So we finally switched off of OBS and went to something called Restream. So I think that's what's working now. Welcome to the show, boys.
Hey, what's up?
What's happening?
Hello, hello.
What's your name?
My name is Jeff.
Every time.
I've got Craig Shapiro here with us today. I've got GDK, and I've got my name is Jeff here with us today. So we got a lot to talk about. It looks like the title of this is The Tariff Man is Back. Is that correct, Paul? Did you update the title to say that?
Yes, indeed.
All right. So what's going on, Craig? You want to unpack that a little bit? Tell us about the Tariff Man.
Can you show the superhero photo of the Tariff Man being back?
So the very first take I have here is Zero Hedge, basically saying that the customs duty revenue for May so far hits $22.3 billion, which is an all-time record. Are you?
I don't know if that is, but if they're saying it, it sounds right. I mean, the tariff rates now are up to 17%, I think, versus 2% last year. So that makes sense that the numbers are starting to flow in.
So I know it looks like they pushed through this big beautiful bill that's now going to the Senate. You know, looks like they're the CBO. I will say this though, the CBO does not. I don't think they are counting tariff revenue as part of the whole equation, which I think, obviously tariffs are a tax, right? So, obviously, if they cut people's tax rates, they're saying, "Oh, we're going to lose all this money." But if you have this as well, it kind of it's not being factored into the equation. I think maybe this is the one unknown factor that the bond market might be missing. You want to weigh in on that at all, Craig? Probably.
Yeah. I think actually one of the first times I was on, I had written a post that went pretty viral. Just about, it was a hypothesis about the tariffs were the plug, right? You in order to fund the tax cuts that the administration wanted to push through, and knowing that spending cuts were going to be difficult and that the Doge cuts were going to be nice, but they weren't going to be able to really move the needle, that tariffs would be the plug. We would need a lot in the way of tariffs. And so it's true, the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, which scores these budgets that get passed by Congress, does not take into consideration a lot of things. It's not taking into consideration unknown tariff revenues, which most things right now are unknown. It doesn't take into consideration kind of this, where the Doge savings are ultimately may wind up. It also makes very conservative estimates for real GDP. So there's a lot of issues with the scoring, but there's been issues with the scoring for forever, right? So it is what it is. But yeah, look, I think the two main things that went on this week, we could go in reverse. The title of today, "The Tariff Man is Back," is because Trump this morning, maybe he woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I don't really know. Maybe he had a big night partying last night. Is. Yeah, there's the
give our man a retweet and a like. Our man Craig Shapiro retweeting a like on this. But funny.
He decided at 7:45 this morning, he decided to basically remind Apple that if they don't make iPhones in America, they will be tariffed at 25%. And that, I think, is on the heels of some of the discussions that Apple has had to move production from China to India. And so Trump doesn't like that. Not sure why he decided that today. Maybe he had a conversation yesterday night at the meme coin crypto dinner that he had, which I'm sure we'll get into. Or I don't know what it was. And
Craig, did you hear what we talked about? I think it was a couple episodes ago, but they're finding that in these all the solar panels that China is shipping over here, that there's master kill switches in the inverters. Did you hear about that?
I did not.
No, that story came out, I think, about a week ago. Somebody actually took apart some of these inverters, and they found that there's a little kill switch a secret little thing that would basically shut off all the inverters. So really, like the Chinese government could essentially press a button and shut down. Like
Shut the grid off.
that's pretty freaking creepy,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah,
Like
man.
that's a
Yeah.
little creepy. So maybe that's kind of like might be some of this after the whole like
I mean,
I don't know.
it's possible. And then
Yeah.
about 45 minutes later, he tweeted something. He tweeted second tweet. He came out maybe it was even 20 minutes later. I don't know. I'm annoyed at the pace of negotiations with Europe. They've been screwing us over forever, and so I'm going to put 50% tariffs on all products out of Europe starting June 1st.
Yeah.
So if you recall, back on April 2nd, Liberation Day, reciprocal tariffs on every country, and then markets freak out. Bond market sells off, stock market sells off. Everybody's freaked out. Trump caves. And announces a 90-day pause on every country but China. That would include every country in Europe for 90 days to negotiate. And then, I don't know, it's only been, what's it been, 40 days or so, 45 days? And I guess he's annoyed at the pace of negotiation with Europe or the way that they're negotiating.
I'm not surprised.
Or the lack of negotiation.
Yeah.
We
He
talked
might-
about this.
He might feel like they're not acting in good faith.
Yeah,
so
look,
it's just like,
absolutely.
hey, cut it out.
Absolutely. And we talked about how, after the way, at least I thought that the way that China responded and negotiated hard and was able to, get things removed, I felt like other countries were going to see that as a potential, hey, Trump has an Achilles heel. Let's not that we don't negotiating in good faith. Let's slow things down. Whatever it is. And so, and I think that we're seeing, Trump getting annoyed by that. And so decides this morning to announce a 50% tariff on everything out of China. And then, Europe. And then later in the day, when he was asked about whether there's still room for negotiating, he basically said, I'm not looking to make a deal. The rate is 50%. If they want to not be tariffed at 50%, just make the products here. Right. And this is him just continuing to harp on just make it here. Right. If you make it here, there are no tariffs. If you make it elsewhere, there are tariffs. He also then reiterated that the tariff on Apple was not just going to be on Apple. Right. That would be illegal.
Yeah, of course.
So he reminded everybody that will be on all computer and portable electronic device manufacturers, including Samsung, including whoever else makes electronic goods, that if they make it here, there are no tariffs. And if they don't make it here, then there will be tariffs. Those will be 25%, and those will start at the end of June. So, look, I think there was hope in the markets and maybe even in the economy that, okay, there was this reprieve, there was this pause. We were going to, negotiations were going to happen. We had 90 days through the middle of July for the rest of the world, and you had the middle of August for China, that there'd be no tariff talk. And then all of a sudden, Trump announces the tariff talk again. So, I think he, and then this gets back to the first thing that happened this week with the big, beautiful bill being passed by the House. I think Trump was feeling pretty good. I think that he's like, look, I got the Freedom Caucus stalwarts who are concerned about the size of the bill and the deficits growing. I got them to basically come to the table. It's a big win. And when the Senate is going to dilute it down, sure, but we got what we wanted. And so he's feeling pretty good that the tax cuts are coming. He probably thinks as early as July. It's really going to be later than that. And the implication, and the actual impact won't be until the end of the year or even until next year. But I think he was feeling pretty good about that. We're going to eventually move the baton and certainty can come back. 100%, tax expensing for new equipment. So, a lot of good things.
Yeah, that's huge.
And certainty. And so he's probably feeling, okay, I know that's on the come now. I could be now more aggressive in the way that I deal on trade because there's no risk to me not getting my tax bill. And lo and behold, we're back into tariff talk into the long holiday weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I will say about the equipment deductions, it's been a big deal. I mean, at least for like our main business, where we're deploying capital in mining and compute, but we also have like these curated mining LLCs we set up with partners, and just in the past couple weeks, on the back of all this, we've deployed millions of dollars just because the people who put the capital in can essentially we get to write it off 100% right up front. So it's a huge deal. It's like essentially buying Bitcoin, but instead we're buying miners, depreciating that 100%, and then obviously the Bitcoin miners put off cash flow in the form of Bitcoin. So it's interesting. So that is a big deal. That definitely does spur business, and I've felt that like recently, right? Before you had bonus depreciation and some stuff, but it was kind of phasing off a little bit. But now this is a big deal. I think there's a lot of good stuff in the bill. The biggest concern is really making sure we can codify these Doge cuts. It doesn't look like there's a lot of political will for that. I guess the question is, what do you think is going to happen in the Senate? Do you think we're going to see, a reduction in the amount of spending? Because it seems like it's still out of control despite what everybody's saying. And I think the bond market is saying, hey, this is still out of fucking control.
Yeah, look, I mean, the administration came in on a platform to lower government spending, lower the deficits, which would lower inflation, which could then bring down borrowing costs, interest rates, which would be self-fulfilling. Yeah, that would help economic growth. That would further reduce inflation and further reduce the deficit, since the government spending on interest now is over $1 trillion. So that was the hope. And that was part of the reason that the bond market was rallying from Inauguration Day through, the end of February, early March, was that momentum on that narrative and on the Doge cuts narrative that Doge is going to come in and, do a lot of work to cut waste, spending, fraud, and the like. Those are going to be big numbers, and so there was hope that the deficit growth would fall, maybe even the spending would actually be reduced in some ways, and I think what we've found out through this process is it's just very, very difficult to cut spending in DC. I mean, there's just there's 435 members of Congress, and then Republicans have basically a 5-6 vote lead. So assume you get no votes from Democrats. So you basically have, every one of the 218 or so Republicans can hold up a bill effectively for whatever they want. And that's, that makes it difficult. You cut spending and in someone's district, he comes out and says, yeah, I don't like that. I'm going to vote against this bill. And so you wind up getting to a situation where the spending cuts, really don't show up. And when you add on no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, this depreciation, expensing, and benefits, and all of a sudden, like the deficit growth in the early part of the next of this bill, which is a 10-year bill, are deficit expansionary, right? It's the exact opposite of what they said they were going to do. And so now look, they got it to the finish line, and we talked about, the Congressional Budget Office doesn't score it the way that the administration would like them to, and no administration does. And if they actually can get real GDP growth accelerating, which the administration thinks they can, then this won't be an issue. But
I do think that will happen. I don't know if it won't be an issue still, but I think with the deregulation, you're going to get massive. The question is that
can they
growth.
do it? Can they do it in a non-inflationary way? And in the last, basically in the last 60 years, there's been zero evidence that the government can have non-inflationary growth.
That's because they don't have a limit. They don't have any we don't have a hard limit, and so they can print, and so it's
just easier to not, right? So the government, the Trump administration and Besson are making this claim that they'll be the ones to do it through productivity gains and through these spending cuts.
What's that saying? I've got a bridge to sell you.
Yeah.
But you look back at the last 60, 80 years, there's no evidence of it. That debt to GDP falling never happens unless we are in highly inflationary periods or speculative bubble periods.
Yeah.
So I was about to bring
up I think you might get both.
Area. Yeah. So we had a surplus for like a year.
Yeah. So that was the late 90s. Was a speculative bubble period where which we've been in part of that over the last few years too. But so they're making a big bet on it.
Yeah. Well, I think we're definitely in a bubble when it comes to AI stuff, because there was a phone screen cover that was optimized for AI input, and it was just a cover for your screen. So all right, everyone's just throwing that on every product to try and get sales and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a correction.
But the build out that's coming compute wise, I mean, it is for sure. There's always a bubble, right? But the question is, what a bubble is attracts capital to an industry, and the amount of energy that's going to be needed, the amount of build out that's coming. I mean, it's just the world is long compute. I mean, I think if you try to short that trend, I think you're a fool, because
you saw
there's going to be more and more compute coming.
The graph of energy output, and it shows China, and they've just been doing.
They've just they've deregulated, and they're just going through the roof. And I think that's part of this big beautiful bill is cutting regulations and saying, hey, this is existential. We can't fuck around with this, right? It's not like we stop burning gas or whatever, and the rest of the world's just like, okay, we'll stop too. It's like, no, they're accelerating 10x. So would you rather have that done in the United States in a healthier way, in a better way, or would you rather just let the rest of the world do it, right? So again, I think technology is going to have to solve that problem eventually. Whether it's the carbon or whatever, they're going to have to figure out a way to remove that from the atmosphere somehow, technologically, I think, but to just be a decel and try to decelerate human progress and growth, I think it's a fool's errand, and you're going to lose in the world, right, if you do that. So I think that this administration is well aware of that.
I think they are coming to the realization that they want to run things hot, right, and that we are going to and they think they can message it to the American public that it will be non-inflationary, but the reality is it'll be inflationary, right? They'll keep telling you, don't worry, don't look over here, and gasoline is at a low for 10 years from Memorial Day weekend. It's great, right? And eggs are down. It's great, right? And so they'll keep telling you
they'll cherry pick certain things,
exactly.
But I mean, that's like the way the whole system works. I mean, we literally just went through the highest inflation in 50 years. And
no, that's transitory. You don't understand.
I'm sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the expensive expert economists have told us it's transitory.
It was never the inflation rate was never going to go up when they just printed 50% of the money supply that took 100 years to create. They just did it in like 12 months. So no, there's going to be no inflation. I mean, Jerome Powell said so. Janet Yellen said so. I mean, it's just transitory.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the gaslighting obviously didn't work in the election, but people kind of like saw through that and they felt it, right? I mean, they felt it was bullshit. So this, unfortunately, with the way the incentive structure of pure fiat money is set up, I mean, there's no political. And Friedrich Hayek, famous Austrian economist, this is what he said to John Maynard Keynes. He said this is why the system will not work well, because there is no political will to stop printing money, because it's a band-aid to put over problems, right? Just
right. And so we've been off a gold standard for a long time, but accelerating from post 1971, and we've been on a U.S. Treasury dollar standard, and that's been okay. But we're at the end of that stage, right?
Yeah.
Between the U.S. sanctioning, between the West sanctioning Russia in 2022 and Ukraine, and more recently with some of the actions that Trump is doing on purpose, right? I mean, he's this Foreign Investment Act and telling foreign countries and companies like your capital is in our markets is worth
also a lot of the foreign purchasers of our debt, they're just not buying anymore, from what I've been reading.
Yeah, so so we're getting into a point where the bond market can act as a discipline agent on a country's ability to spend without tax revenues, right, and keep running those deficits. At some point, and we're in that phase now, it seems, where interest rates are reacting to this reality, and the government, Besson was quoted this morning as saying that that's not why yields are up, but it is. It's at least a part of it that bond investors are concerned that they're not going to be paid back in inflated away money.
So what did Besson say? But the crazy thing is, like, it's like as the bond, it's like this crazy dance with the bond thing, right? Because it's like, if the interest rates go up, then it's like it's more obvious that they're going to print money to pay that interest, which is like this, So it's like this crazy.
I mean, this is what happens in emerging markets when you have a balance of payments,
like this
crisis. Like we're moving into that direction.
But even if they reduce the interest rates, that just means we can borrow more, and so they're borrow harder, and then you're going to need to print more again afterwards. It's no matter what they do, it's more printing and more borrowing.
Yeah, it's just the cycle never ends. That's why Bitcoin's at all-time highs.
Do you think stable coins buying those bonds will offset it? The people that don't.
Well, I mean, that's certainly, like, if sovereign countries aren't buying the bonds anymore, it's like, how can we keep this dollar reserve currency system going? The way to do it is absolutely what the current administration is pushing for, which is open up stable coins on blockchains and allow third world people to essentially buy stable coins, which in turn those stable coin issuers are going to buy treasuries, right? So it creates. I think I saw today that now, like, Tether is like one of the biggest bond purchaser in the world or something like that. I mean, so this is the future, and this is why this Genius Act is so important, for U.S. dollar hegemony going forward in the world. I mean, nation states are saying, no, we're not doing this anymore, and like that's evident in the data. So who is going to do it? Well, third world people living in third world countries who want access to the dollar because they've got terrible hyperinflating currencies that are even worse.
And
so,
like the carbon, what is it called? Carbon offsets, tokenizing carbon offsets as well. That can, potentially help with manufacturing in the United States, and then having the tokenized offset for carbon, where you can get money back from that.
I think that whole thing is a giant scam, but yeah, I mean, it is a thing, and there are these carbon credits and this whole thing, but and there's a whole game and stuff behind it. But yeah, I mean, those things should absolutely be tokenized. If they're going to be a credit, it should be tokenized on a blockchain. But I don't know how that has to do with the bond stuff. That's just
no, you're right though. But I mean, it's the government, the U.S. government realizes that foreign countries are going to have less desire to store their excess wealth in U.S. treasuries, but they also recognize that the citizens of those countries may want to hold their wealth in U.S. dollar assets because they risk inflation or expropriation by keeping their money locked in their own countries. And so stablecoins have been the largest percentage growing demand force for T-bills. And as that universe grows and as regulation in the U.S. kind of starts to support stablecoin issuance, then it's directly going to be a demand source for T-bills. I think the Treasury is thinking it could be up to a couple $1 trillion of incremental demand that would come from stablecoins as a demand source for T-bills, and that's people in, I don't know, pick your random African country that has 30% inflation. It doesn't, a farmer doesn't want to, hold his capital in the Nigerian naira. And so he says, okay, let me put it into Bitcoin or stable. And then, you know what? I don't want Bitcoin. It's too volatile today or this week or whatever. Let's put it back in dollars here. And so it goes
people are sleeping on the Nigerian population. I mean, I get a lot of Nigerians message me all the time. Like they're watching these podcasts, like they're watching these streams, like they're, Nigerians are some of the smartest population in Africa, especially when it comes to blockchain technology. So they're adopting it quickly. I was helping a dude set up an S17 in his house. Like he has it on the floor. It's like a concrete floor. I'm like, bro, you got to put a pillow under that so the vibrations don't ruin the silicon. But like he's running this S17 in his house, and like he's like, oh my God, it's like worth a couple dollars a day. Like my power is like free or low because he's got a couple solar panels, and like he's so happy about it, right? So they are getting blockchain technology, and adoption is growing massively. And whatever the government says over there does not matter. They don't listen to the government. They say, fuck you, we're going to adopt it harder, which is what's happening, which has actually played out. So
and the money and the money is outside their system, right? So it's outside money that these folks can, if they have to flee or they want to again grow wealth in a non-inflationary way. This is the way to do it.
So I'm curious how the citizens of El Salvador are doing, because they got onboarded into Bitcoin when it was like 30K or so.
Yeah.
So now it's tripled that.
The question is, what is the rate of adoption? I know there are some, Bitcoin Beach in some places where, there's high levels of usage and adoption, but my guess is it still probably needs, there's probably still a learning curve, still a ways to go there adoption wise. But
right, yeah, for the ones that adopted it early,
started doing UI sales also needs to be more simplified, because with the wallet keys, the multiple steps to doing a transmitter. Once that UI becomes easier and it's just like a tap or send receive, it'll be, I think, adopted more.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
And that's happening too.
Guys, producer Paul here. Just want to chime in and remind everybody that we're giving away a ticket to Bitcoin 2025. All you got to do is leave a spicy comment, drop in the live chat, and engage. We are generously giving away tickets to just about anybody with a pulse. And we do have some questions here. So
yeah, let's chime in. Can you, since you're using Restream today, Paul, can you put the questions on the side of the screen that we see? Is that possible?
Let me see if I can make that happen.
All right, that would be nice.
I will get going on that in just a second. But while I am interrupting you guys so rudely, I just want to make sure that I get these ones out real quick. So someone said, someone is Alessandro. What's up, Alessandro?
What's up, brother?
He says, someone get Craig a cocktail. For crying out loud.
I did request one, actually.
Did you?
Yesterday when you asked if I was going to join, I said, will it be cocktails? So
did you text me back?
There are no cocktails. I do have water though.
You have been catfished.
Unfortunately, I am I'm a very dry individual, so I provide Celsiuses and water and sparkling waters and anything else you might request. But I don't personally drink alcohol, so I don't really provide it here. But to each their own. It's BYOB here at the Protocol Pulse HQ, Consensus Protocol HQ. So you're welcome to bring your own if you'd like.
Yep, amen. Well, we will keep it dry for all the good reasons. I heard
I'm a crazy motherfucker, and the best decision I've ever made in life is to stay away from drugs and alcohol. So words of wisdom to those who listen. You know, if you enjoy those things in your own time, that's, you know, totally up to you. But that's my 2 cents, my 2 sats.
I read recently that apparently this younger generation is not drinking nearly as much as our parents' generation, and so alcohol sales have declined, and it seems like they're not going to come back. So interesting thing to look at. But someone else asked, Craig is quite popular on the chat today. He said, "What's Craig's next prediction? Trying to make some plays on Polymarket."
What do we got, Craig? What's the prediction? What do you got for us?
This is not financial advice, but here's what I predict.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not short in Bitcoin right now, me personally, but let's see what Craig says.
I mean, I'm not short Bitcoin either. I've been long Bitcoin for a long time and long gold for a long time. I mean, I think, look, Bitcoin is it's doing what when we spoke in at the Bitcoin conference in Naples earlier this year. We talked about a correction in the first few months of the year, and then kind of Bitcoin relatively outperforming everything as it gained market share as a store value asset, as an inflation hedge, and with a supportive administration. So no, look, I mean, I do think that with Tariff Man being back, some of the certainty about policy is going to, go away again. Markets have had a nice, risk asset markets have had a nice rally off the lows from middle of April. And so I would expect some digestion period here as, the market tries to find a new equilibrium level dealing with these higher interest rates, right? I mean, I think the administration we talked, a couple months ago about, well, it would make sense for the administration to engineer a growth slowdown to start the year to help bring down yields and bring down inflation, kind of that self-fulfilling prophecy. And it was moving in that direction. And the Liberation Day kind of accelerated it. And then, a bit of a panic about, well, if this keeps going, like what's really going to happen? We're going to have a financial market, meltdown that's going to back up into the real economy. It's going to get even worse. And clearly there were a lot of people complaining about that, calling up the administration, telling them to stop. And they did, right? They took off the most egregious left tail outcome of 145% tariffs on China for a long period of time. So, many people are thankful for the administration not going down that path. But what that meant was that they really didn't snuff out inflation enough, right? And so there's this festering of inflation. I know, Matt, you like to look at the true-flation.
I think it spiked back up recently.
True-flation is spiking back up.
Are we above 2% now?
A lot of that's seasonal, and a lot of that's food related. But yeah, so it's going to be very difficult to see headline momentum on inflation returning, falling back down again. And now with this deficit increasing budget proposal, which has passed the House and is likely going to pass the Senate to some degree, watered down, but it'll still be big deficits. The bond market is not happy, right? And so 30-year yields, which are a big driver of mortgage rates, are back above 5% again. And so mortgage rates are moving back higher again, and housing sentiment is falling, and borrowing costs are elevated, and so that's an issue for the economy. And so I'm concerned here that more and more folks are getting put into the lower part of the K-shaped economy. Another thing that this administration has decided to do is resume all student loan payments, where to the extent that you are delinquent on payments, they will start to garnish wages in order to have repayment done. There are borrowers who are on Social Security. Social Security will be not given to folks who have student debt outstanding. That first call will be on to student debt. There's 5 million borrowers that owe close to $360 billion that have been delinquent for over 90 days.
Right,
but that have to start paying those bills now.
What's going to start happening though is, I know most people that have the student loans, and if they're not making payments, they already don't have the money. Some of them are just delinquent, but others they don't have the money to pay for it. They're living paycheck to paycheck, which is the majority of Americans. So now they're going to have their wage garnished, and now they're not even going to be able to afford their other necessities like housing and food and all that.
I think like the way to solve this problem is to just get the government the fuck out of this whole giving like student loan shit. Like if you should be able to default on your loans like anything else. So if you make a bad loan, like if you're a lender and you give a bad loan, like you shouldn't give money to things that don't make sense, right? Like here's a degree to go study gender ideology and basket weaving or whatever bullshit that you'll never be able to pay it back with. I mean, like, no, like that. We got to stop this shit. We got to stop running a socialist, communist fucking education system.
Right.
No,
I agree that we shouldn't.
like, it's got to stop.
But like, all right, we're here where we are now. So we gotta deal with it.
Resume student loans and payments, but let people default on their debt and stop giving fucking loans for bullshit. Stop wasting taxpayer money on bullshit and giving it to these corrupt fucking woke universities like Harvard.
I think our student loans, if you declare personal bankruptcy, student loans are not part of it.
Yeah, you can't get out. You can't
get out of it. It's completely,
which is crazy.
It's absurd.
It's fucking absurd.
Yeah,
it's indentured servitude.
Right.
Yeah,
That's right.
It's crazy.
The whole system is screwed up.
It's fucked.
And I think I haven't fully come out on one side or the other yet. I have to think more about this Harvard situation. But what I do know is that Harvard has a $50 billion endowment, and it's not clear to me why
they've got money.
Private institutions have tax-free status. I don't.
It's unbelievable.
I don't even really understand.
It's taxpayer money going to the most elite individuals.
But
it's crazy.
Let alone forget even just Harvard. But there are plenty of other private institutions that are not Harvard that are still good institutions, and people go to those colleges and they have endowments. And why are they tax exempt? I have no idea. The government. Look, we have a not only do we have a spending problem, there is a tax revenue problem.
I mean, but no wonder they're all communists. They're not held accountable by the markets or by reality. I mean, no wonder they have tenured communist professors that are indoctrinating and fucking destroying our country.
We're not asking the colleges to be run like businesses, but when you give them, like you always point out the Munger quote of show me the incentive,
show me the incentive, show you the outcome. Yeah,
and it's colleges have gotten that the rate of inflation on college education, dwarfs the rate of regular inflation is coming by multitudes. And these colleges are sitting back with tax exempt status and just, it's
well, they know they can keep raising the tuition because they fucking know that the government is going to pay no matter what. So it's craziness. It's fucking absurd. It's insane. So I think it's insane.
So the administration hasn't really come out with like a coordinated plan to fix all this. But when you start doing things like, okay, start making people pay, let's discuss this Harvard situation, we're now starting to move the Overton window here a little bit on higher education and who's going to pay for it and how it's going to be paid. And frankly, it's about time.
Well, I mean, hopefully we can just get people away from thinking everyone needs to go to higher education.
Yeah.
And especially with what we have AI going on and websites and just there's free resources everywhere.
Exactly.
You can get a personalized tutor.
It's unbelievable what's available. You can learn more in fucking 4 hours from a fucking AI tutor than you can learn at fucking 4 years at Harvard University half the time. I mean, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here, but the world has changed. Incentives have changed. I mean, we got to fix these incentive structures because it's just not going to work going forward.
I mean, what you have developing is you're having a bifurcated society, right? Where people who recognize this are saying, "Fuck it, like this, I'm going to go ahead and go do it."
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of people who are saying, holding on to hope and holding on to, well, if we have this existing system, if we just fix it, like it's going to be okay. And normally, the people who just kind of go moving ahead and start breaking things, they will just continue to outperform the people who are holding on for this old system to be reinvigorated. And
I got so many people coming to me. Sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah, no. Didn't Trump have a free education solution during his campaign? Wasn't that part of his campaign?
I don't know. Free education.
I don't remember that on his platform.
I don't remember that.
I think I remember hearing that somewhere where he was going to offer a free.
I mean, the internet is available to everybody, essentially.
Yeah.
Except for the people that Kamala Harris didn't connect with broadband with the $50 billion or whatever it was. 5 years later, $50 billion down the drain, stolen, fraud, NGO'd it out, and fucking we don't have any internet connected anywhere. And Elon's like, hey, I could give everybody Starlink and do this for fucking 1/20th the price and have it done in a week.
There's this interesting thing that has been proposed where they essentially invest into babies, right? And start.
Oh, I think what you're talking about is, which is... That's a good fucking plan. I mean, put it in the market form of some sort, and every time a child's born or something, like that's a much better idea. Like,
it's cool. It was originally called the MAGA savings account, but has subsequently been renamed the Trump savings account. Oh. So it's going to be new babies will have Trump savings accounts. I think I forget the dynamics, but I think
will they go to Trump University?
Who knows? But I think $1,000 or so from the government will be placed into some account that or some and that you can match or whatever. But look, it's a way to start preparing. First of all, encouraging population growth. I think is something that we need in order to have GDP growth. So I'm up for that.
I'm receptive to the idea. I'm terrified of the implementation because I just have no faith it's not going to be full of fraud and abuse again, because we have current lists of fraud and abuse, and we can't get anything fixed about it.
Yeah.
So this is just going to be another program that they abuse.
Yeah, you might not be wrong. But
I have a lot of pessimism when
it's a better plan if they just fucking put it into the market and do 50% Bitcoin and 50% Nasdaq or whatever, and honestly, like that would vastly outperform, as long as it's not another Social Security government-run Ponzi scheme where they print the money, deflate the benefits, and inflate the benefits away, and then people don't even realize what's happened, and they don't even have the money to begin with in the thing because they've used it to do all this other fraud over here. So yeah, I mean, that would be a much better plan, I think, personally. Invest in American companies in the American future, actually productive assets instead of Social Security like Ponzi schemes. That's my thought. Let's see here. What do you got here, Paul? U.S. President Donald Trump announces 50% tariff on EU. Starting on 1st June, Donald Trump threatens EU with 50% tariffs as Apple faces 25% unless iPhones are made in the U.S. President Trump announced 50% tariffs on the EU. The EU and fucked around and found out. Let's read Trump's actual take on this. Can you pull that up so we can actually read that? The European Union, which was formed for the primary purpose of taking advantage of the United States on trade, has been very difficult to deal with. Their powerful trade barriers, VAT taxes, ridiculous corporate penalties, non-monetary trade barriers, monetary manipulations, unfair and unjustified lawsuits against American companies, and more have led to a trade deficit with the U.S. of more than $250 billion a year, a number which is totally unacceptable. Our discussions with them are going nowhere. Therefore, I am recommending a straight 50% tariff on the European Union starting on June 1st, 2025. There is no tariff if the product is built or manufactured in the United States. Thank you for your attention to matter. Yeah, I mean, I think that's quite a take. The EU has been, I think they've been like canceling elections when their unpreferred candidate wins left and right. I mean, all sorts of crazy shit happening over there, arresting people for fucking speech stuff. I mean, it is just out of control in the EU, and it's impossible to even do business there. Really, I mean, electric rates are. I do business all over, but like the EU is like impossible. I mean, like you try to buy something, it's like there's a 30% VAT. You want to have, get some electricity, it's fucking 3 times the cost of everywhere else, And then we found out now that like the only reason they have all this free healthcare supposedly is because like we're fucking subsidizing it in America by like giving them drugs and all this stuff at like a fraction of the price that the Americans pay. No more. This is enough, right? We're subsidizing their defense when it comes to all the NATO stuff. It's like none of them are following their agreed upon expenditure towards the military. Enough is enough. So like I'm with Trump on this.
No, Europe has become an easy punching bag for Trump to complain against, and part of me thinks he wants to break up Europe. I think he's genuinely
Europe or the EU.
The EU, you mean?
The EU.
Yeah.
I think he wants to break up the EU. I think he's genuinely annoyed that he can have the Italian Premier Meloni come in and speak and have a great conversation. He wants to talk about trade with Italy specifically, and she's a fan of his, and he's a fan of her, whatever it is. And then he can't negotiate directly with Italy because Italy needs to negotiate with 18 other countries, and they're having this holistic negotiating tactic because it's a union, right? It's a European Union, and so but Trump, that's not how he likes dealing directly, right? He likes having those face-to-face conversations, and so with Germany it's cars, and with France it's wine, and if with Italy it's whatever. So the fact is, like, basically what you have with the EU is you kind of have bureaucracy out of Brussels kind of arguing and trying to deal on the behalf of 19 countries. And Trump's like, this is bullshit. Like I'm like, we're not getting anywhere here. So fuck it. It's 50%. Let's go. And then eventually I'll just make a deal myself with Italy, and Italy is going to come to the table with me because they're tired of this 50% thing. And is that going to fracture the European Union? Is that really his goal? I don't know, but it is interesting. It's an easy punching bag. And look, the deficits are huge. So he did say 250 million. Or you did say
250 billion.
He's saying 250 million. It's a typo by him.
I'm sorry, 250 million. Yeah.
But it is 250 billion.
I was thinking billion.
It is 250 billion.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Trump doesn't really check his tweets. He just he feels it. You get
Yeah.
exactly what he's thinking. Like, mistakes be damned. He's gonna throw it out there.
But it's a good. And I don't think he feels like this is a big issue for now. China was more of an issue for the supply chain, right? That clearly, in a way, I mean, you may disagree, Maddie, but he fucked around and found out a little bit with China with the supply chain. Like, there's real issues about this trade embargo. With Europe, I don't really think we have those critical goods issues. It's not like we're getting exorbitant amounts of goods from any individual, any in particular country in Europe that's going to really fuck our supply chain over. So I think this for him is a transition away from being super aggressive on China to saying Europe's an easy one. Like, what are they going to do? I don't really care. This is a way for us to get money. They've been screwing us over forever.
I mean,
I'm for it.
I'm pretty sure we did all that military action for them with the Houthis because they kept shooting at their ships and stuff. So we kind of helped them there. It's like, hey, we're
and all the NATO spending, right? He still feels like we've been getting screwed by.
He's not wrong. He's like, he even told them too. Is like he told Germany, he's like, hey, don't fucking decommission all your shit. Like you're gonna have a serious energy problem with Russia. And like they're like laughing at him in their little fucking thing, like ha 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 ha. And then 2 years later, it's the Ukraine war. It's like the first thing that happens is cut off their energy. It's like just laughable, right? So I think he's fed up with them. And honestly, like I feel the same way. I'm watching, like looking at stuff. It's like, do we even have a similar shared culture anymore? It's like you're arresting people for fucking social media posts and like it just seems like, they're I don't even know how to describe it, but
well, JD Vance gave a pretty hawkish speech in Germany at the Munich,
and I think he fucking
conference.
hit the nail on the head. That's how I feel.
And I think that is a message that we're getting more and more from the U.S. is kind of, decoupling. I don't know if it's a serious. I don't know. It's something different, right? Something's
got to give here. Like things have to change. We're not going to just subsidize their lifestyle, whether it's fucking from medicine and healthcare to defense. Like that's on their side of the world. Like their stuff when they're like not even meeting their own obligations. It's like ridiculous. Like, hey, like this is on your doorstep. Why aren't you fucking putting 2% of your budget to defense? I mean, like that's ridiculous. We spend half our fucking budget on defense. You can't put 2%. You can't even meet 2% of the spending. I mean, come on.
I
ridiculous.
Think this is also a good start when it comes to manufacturing in the U.S. because he's not specific and there's different levels of manufacturing. So you can have parts partially manufactured outside of the U.S. brought in to be finished in the U.S., which starts like the whole manufacturing process. And as we build these chip component companies in the United States, eventually will be adopted, kind of taking a little bit less away from that pre-manufactured good and kind of adopting it into to the point where we're building and manufacturing everything from a bare board to a final product. So, I mean, I think getting manufacturing started in the U.S. it's a good start.
Yeah, I mean, tariffs are another tax, no doubt. But if we can get rid of the income tax and you supplement this as a tax for access to our markets, and also as a national security tool, right? Like we got to have some manufacturing here for critical things. I mean, there's been a lot of signs, and like we just have. It's a national security situation. So that's my thought. Paul, why don't you take us to the next take? Had a lot to discuss today on the tariff situation. Tariff man. All right. Why don't we play this? Actually, before we play the Bitcoin, but before we play Pete Rizzo's video, can you play Scott Dissent's video? Because it has to do with the Trump administration's take on digital assets. Let's just listen to it live and react to it. I want to hear everybody's thoughts.
We are going big on digital assets. So Trump administration has made digital assets a priority. Past administration starved and almost made extinct a lot of these companies and pushed it offshore. So what we want to do is apply the highest U.S. regulatory and AML standards to digital assets, especially stable coins. And I've seen estimates that just over the short term, stable coins could create $2 trillion of demand for U.S. Treasuries and Treasury bills. To put that in context, the number is probably about $300 billion right now. We are going big on offshore.
So we got a question here from Harry. Is it Harry Lancet? Can you pull that chat screen up again, Paul? The restream chat. There it is. Yeah. He says, Harry Lancet says, do we not need to bring back manufacturing? Yeah, Harry, I think we do need to bring back some manufacturing, especially for critical components that are national security concerns. And, I think some level of tariff will accomplish that. We have to be strategic and careful how we do it. I think, the focus is on fair trade, not exactly maybe not free trade, right? So I lean very libertarian, but this is where I diverge on some libertarian thinking is that, there's a national security component that's not just about markets, right? Obviously, if every country in the world completely removes their tariffs and you have completely free trade, that might be the best thing economically for the world, for sure. But we don't live in a world where, we don't have to take into account national security. So I think given that, we absolutely do need to bring back some level of maybe it's not T-shirts and like the kind of low type of manufacturing, the low value type of manufacturing that's easy in sweatshop, etc. But when it comes to making drones, and it comes to making computer components, and it comes to making phones, and it comes to making things with national security implications, solar panels are another example. Apparently, after we found out that the Chinese government has the companies putting kill switches in our inverters, right? So these are real world examples of national security that do matter. Craig, do you have any thoughts on that?
Look, I mean, Trump has been elected on this idea that he's going to return manufacturing jobs to America, right? Clearly, the COVID experience led to a recognition from a national security perspective that our supply chain was woefully ill-prepared to deal with the pandemic and also to deal with potential for a future war, right? I mean, given how much of a military components and ammunition is actually coming from China, we're literally importing Chinese materials for our weapons in order to eventually fight a war with China. I mean, I think Trump really saw the woes of that. And in addition, as we talked about before, the hollowing out of the middle class as China entered the WTO and the loss of tens of thousands of factories in America has led to an opioid crisis, has led to a suicide and depression and anxiety crisis, and hundreds of thousands of Americans killed by fentanyl over the last 15 years. And so this is a way to bring back manufacturing to America is of paramount importance, and the government and the administration is saying manufacturing jobs growth is part of the scorecard, right? It's part of the way you should judge whether or not this administration is doing a good job or not.
Yeah.
Is how many manufacturing jobs are being created on a monthly basis. And so far, I mean, it's early days, but for whatever it is, 4 months in a row of positive job growth in that front, and that's and that administration wants to keep pushing and pushing and pushing in that direction.
Yeah.
And I think that is a good thing. And tariffs are a tool to help facilitate that transition, and is entirely necessary because we don't have free trade in this world, and we don't have fair trade.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we have neither.
You're 100% right.
So we might as well. I think we've seen from Trump is that it's an America first agenda across the board, and that's what he's embracing. That's what he was elected on, and that's what needs to be supported.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think I think that was the CEO of Ford or something came out recently, and I saw an interview with him, and he said they're hiring like crazy. The policies, are boosting their outlook and their growth. So, we've got all sorts of companies like Nvidia, et cetera, committing. We got the UAE now, the Saudis as well, committing like tons of fucking capital here to do just these things. So.
Well, I mean, they're saying they're hiring a bunch of people, but with the wages still having been stagnant comparatively, yeah, they're hiring people, but are those people going to be able to make a living wage? I hate to phrase it that way, but
I think if you're hired by Ford at a manufacturing facility, you can make a living wage. Yeah.
And it's important for what comes next, like not just this administration, but afterwards as well, because we've seen this boom, this bit of a boom when it comes to manufacturing and bringing in, high tariffs before, but then the following administration will come in and it just goes right back down.
Well, actually, the Biden administration left a lot of the tariffs that the Trump administration had put in place. They didn't come and take those away, so.
No, a Democrat never wants to slash any tax.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point.
The other thing this administration is doing on the wage front is closing the border, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have that, population growth coming from immigrant labor,
which further depresses wages. Right.
So that's just another, that's another reason why wages. Now, look, is it going to be corporate profit margin expanding? No, it's not. And that's something that the American society has to really comes to grips with, because the stock market and corporate profits are not the economy.
Right. Well, we have a bit of a broken system when it comes to the stock market, because all the companies are required, if they're publicly traded, to be reporting every quarter and every year. So that kind of incentivizes short-term thinking, because you can't say, oh, we're not going to put out our statements for 5 years because we're going to drop our profits because we're doing this big investment structure and all these types of things, and then issue it in 5 years because you have a bigger, longer time horizon. everyone has to do it every year. So everyone's always focusing from year to year rather than trying to think, oh, let's think about the next 5 years, the next decade, the next 20 years.
I think that's part of the reason why these tariffs need to be announced, implemented, and stuck with, right? We shouldn't be talking about that. Well, in 2 years, the European tax may come off, because by keeping it fluid, you're gonna prevent these companies who are short term thinking. They're gonna say, you know what, I'm just gonna wait because it may be gone. The tariffs may be gone. If you just come out and say, look, it's 20%, not 50, it's 20%, and it's not going away, guys. It's not going away until our trade deficit with Europe is zero. And so Ford, you have plants in, or even, BMW, you have all these plants and make them here, right? You have various European countries, make your stuff here. Yeah. Tariffs are going to be here for 5 years. Yeah. So sorry, at least.
There's a reason there's no fucking American cars in the EU. Like we talked about the fucking EU, they're like 100% tariffs on all American made cars. It's like fucking ridiculous.
I also heard it was because it's just kind of got a different design requirements for the EU. You use a lot of small roads that are really
they're full of shit. They just fucking it's protectionist bullshit from after World War II.
I'm sure it's both.
It's total fucking bullshit. They're full of fucking shit. They've done it to protect their domestic industry, and we allowed them to do it after World War II. A lot of these places, Germany specifically, to rebuild their country. It was the part of the Marshall Plan. Like we were like, listen, like we're fucking crushing it. We won the war. We did all this shit. Like we're gonna help you rebuild, right? We don't want another Adolf Hitler come to power because we put our boot on your throat. So we're gonna let you rebuild your domestic industry. Like we're gonna support that. We're gonna allow you to do your tariffs. And guess what? Here we are, 80 years later. Those fucking tariffs are still there. Why? It's not fair. It's ridiculous, right? That ain't fair trade. That ain't free trade. I don't know what that is. That's bullshit, is what that is. Any thoughts?
Couldn't have said it better myself, right? But look, this idea that the U.S. can continue to, fund and finance the rest of the world and subsidize the rest of the world it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work for America anymore.
It doesn't work for us anymore
because we are that much in debt.
It worked for a number of years, but we've run out of savings.
Yeah,
because we were financing everyone else by burning up our own capital in our country. And we're
fighting.
We hollowed out our country.
Yeah, and then spending $9 trillion in the middle, in Afghanistan and Iraq and these senseless wars that have only really left us with a $400 billion a year Veterans Affairs bill. Yeah, right. So it's not only did we spend all that money, we still got to pay. We have to still pay every year for our soldiers, and we should. Mm-hmm. And so we get nothing for that, and so we can no longer afford to do what the rest of the world wants us to do, and they should be fine with that, and we should be fine with that too. That our power is and our presence abroad is in retreat. Now, look, we still have the largest nuclear weapons arsenal, so no one should fuck with us or our closest allies. Let's not forget. Yeah, but to your point you made before, we have bases in 100+ countries around the world. I'm not sure we're going to be keeping those, forever. And all our presence of soldiers in various places, I'm not sure we're going to need
to
do
I've said, if you want us there, you fucking should pay us to be there. That's the South Korea. That's what happened with Trump last time with South Korea. I think that's the model. If you want to pay our salaries of our soldiers and, you want our, defense and you want us there and you're going to pay for it, okay. It provides jobs. People are unbit. You know what I mean? That's okay, I think, personally. If you're not going to fucking pay us. We're not going to pay for it, right? You're on your own. That's kind of how I think about it, right? I think that's a reasonable middle ground to be in, right? That's my thought. What do you guys think? Someone Get Fit With It says, these new tariffs are going to crush small mom and pop fentanyl businesses. How's a family-run cartel supposed to compete? Philip says, I don't think they're declaring those at the border. Yeah, I don't know if it was fentanyl's getting declared at the border, but that's a good, funny.
Probably by the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah. Jesus.
There was another question.
Yes. What do we got?
Let me pull that up.
It's not on the restream thing.
Yeah, I popped this out after the fact, so the first few didn't show up.
Okay.
So Philip Imbert says, now that BTC hit a new all-time high, do you think in the coming 1 to 2 months we're going to continue to see Bitcoin climb, or will it pull back and consolidate take into consideration the talks of governments and states looking into cryptocurrency reserves.
Personally, I would not be shorting Bitcoin here. I think that, I think this is going to pop up to probably about 120, 130. I think that's going to be the new kind of range. That's my personal opinion. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think that's kind of what we're going to see over the next couple of weeks. There might be some big announcements at the Bitcoin conference next week. We're going to be there. We are giving away a free ticket, so anybody who's been asking questions is in the running for that free ticket. So feel free to chime in, put a comment, retweet, whatever, and we'll reach out to you if you win a free ticket to the Las Vegas Bitcoin conference. But I think there are going to be some big announcements at that conference. JD Vance is speaking at that conference. We haven't heard any further announcements about the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. Everyone's saying kind of like, oh, Bitcoin's popping and there's really no news. I've been hearing that. It's like, well, it seems like the news sometimes gets out and is a little bit of inside news, and that's when you see the price react. So I don't know. I just wouldn't be shorting Bitcoin here. That's all I got to say. What do you guys think?
Look, I think the demand source, I think we've been seeing over the course, let's say, of the last few months, the structural demand source has come from more companies adopting the Saylor MicroStrategy playbook, right? There's been other companies that have started to adopt this strategy, not only in America but globally. There's a company in Japan. There's a couple other companies, and now this what's this company with that Jack Mallers is doing is Cantor 21, right? So another, it's Cantor and it's Tether, right? And it's Jack, who are going to just be basically replicating the Saylor strategy, borrowing fiat to buy Bitcoin. You're seeing it more and more.
Saylor's got to be way positive at this point.
So, and then you have, I think we're closer on states than we are on federal, right? There's various bills in a few different states, I think, that are talking about putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet of state treasuries, which I think makes a ton of sense and can be done very easily, and much more easily than at the federal level. So
seems like we're already seeing that.
You have this structural demand stuff that I think is that people are realizing. Bitcoin is here to stay, and it's supported by the administration. And from a game theory point of view, with inflation and higher global interest rates, right? The higher global interest rates are not just a U.S. phenomenon, right? Yields in Japan are making multi-decade highs. Long-term yields in Europe are making highs. Yields in the UK are making highs. So governments are going to have to print more money to pay their rising interest burdens and their rising deficits. So this fiat debasement against hard assets is going to continue. That's why gold is making highs, and Bitcoin is a store of value asset. And so it's structurally going to continue. Anything can happen on a short-term basis, but I kind of concur with you, Maddie. I think the big short opportunity in Bitcoin, we had it, right? It was from the election high down through, I don't know, what was the recent lows? Low 70s, whatever it was.
Yeah, 70s, 80s.
I was thinking like 85. It didn't go to 70.
So I think we saw. Are we gonna have another correction? Sure, we're gonna have another correction in this lifetime with Bitcoin. But I think I think the trends
not in the near future.
I wouldn't be surprised to see a $10,000 daily candle. That's all I'm going to say.
That part, and also I think it might be a buy the rumor, sell the news event, and then the volatility will be somewhere stuck like in the 20, 30, 40,000 volatility. So we'll see higher prices, but quite a bit of volatility as well.
We saw this last year too. Into the run up into the Bitcoin conference in July, Bitcoin rallied, very aggressively into the conference and kind of rallied right into RFK and Trump speaking, and then Trump delivered just about everything that everybody wanted, and Bitcoin sold right off, right? So you often do have this better to have traveled than arrived type mentality with markets, and so once we maybe this next week with the Bitcoin conference maybe is a kind of short-term top type situation. Everybody's there, everybody's buying Bitcoin, the world is fine, and then there's no incremental positive headlines for a few days or weeks, and we have a little bit of that short-term digestion on the other side of that.
Well, the other thing we're gonna be seeing is more companies adopting it, because I know Overstock's been doing it for years, but Steak and Shake recently did it so that you can pay.
GameStop also has been buying.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. But have they implemented buying stuff with Bitcoin?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You mean that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Soon enough.
We had our Bitcoin meetup at Steak and Shake the other day, and it was pretty cool to pay with the Lightning Network and just boom, couple clicks, and they accept Bitcoin, so that's awesome.
Right. So it's going to be a lot of commercial companies saying, "Hey, let's get it on our balance sheets." Well, how do we do it? Well, we don't have any right now, and you can either go to the market and deal with brokers, Or you could just do trade and commerce and then acquire it that way.
It would be nice to see like gaming adopt currency, digital currencies in their everyday gaming.
Yeah.
And then
Wasn't X supposed to be setting up like tipping in Bitcoin or something like that?
Well, we do have our guest last week. We had Dr. K from Quai Network on. If you want to pull up his take here, he's working on something called Kipper Money, and it's an overlay that goes over all social media platforms, and you can tip with, I believe, his Quai, which is the currency of that network.
Right.
So
but X itself
was
talking about.
I don't know if they were
putting
talking
in
about it.
Bitcoin tips or something.
Yeah. So there's if you use Nostr, you can send Sats. So
I think
kind of similar to that.
There also needs to be changes in the hopefully, I don't know if this is imminent or not. I don't think it is, but just on the tax treatment of spending Bitcoin, right? It becomes a tax. It's a taxable event when you spend your Bitcoin, so it just becomes hairy. And if there could be some momentum, right? If that was something that came out of the Bitcoin conference, that there was legislative momentum. I know Lummis is there. I know Jim Justice is there. Marsha Blackburn is there. So you have 3 senators there, and JD Vance is there. And I know there's a lot of backroom private meetings with whales, like Maddie.
Yeah.
So if maybe the discussions, I think that would be an important discussion to have is kind of some changes in tax treatment.
I know there's been support for that. There just hasn't been bipartisan support for that. So I know one side of the aisle is very amenable to that. The other side of the aisle, not so much historically. So, hopefully we do see some stuff like that. Let's look at Dr. K's post here. It appears that Ripple Labs is going to become the buyer of Circle and, more importantly, gain control of USDC. I have been saying for years that USDC undermines the centralization of decentralized systems and effectively cedes control of those systems to the people that control USDC. I always thought the important person in the chain was the head of the treasury, previously Janet Yellen. Never had Brad Garlinghouse on my bingo card. So yeah, that is a funny take, and again, stable coins on blockchains, especially reserve-backed ones, there is that, just like the way you have money in your bank account right now, like you think it's yours, that can be frozen at any moment by the government authority if they force that institution to do that. So you have something very similar on blockchain, but you just have all these other advantages where you can send the money more permissionlessly, it can move faster, and you can take it, essentially you can have full custody of that. Unless, of course, you commit a crime, and there's a process for subpoenas and whatever, and then they're forced to go to USDC and say, hey, freeze this wallet address, right? So that is a concern, and it's a level of you're getting a little bit more freedom and decentralization, but yeah, it's definitely not the full suite that you get with sovereign systems like Bitcoin, right? So there is that, absolutely. But again, options for people, right? So sometimes it's not always like what's the perfect solution. It's like what's 10 times better than what the current situation is, right? So I think USDC is a step in the right direction when it comes to being able to transact and more permissionlessly. But is it perfect? Hell no, right? Like Bitcoin is so much better on so many different fronts, right?
I mean, it seems like the biggest, one of the biggest risks for Bitcoin is kind of the elimination of the rails of being able to use Bitcoin and spending your Bitcoin somewhere, in America or any of these countries. And the more we inculcate and bring in things like USDC and stable coins to these rails, the harder it's going to be to remove Bitcoin from the rails, right? I mean,
of course.
So I think as
like a Trojan horse,
the Bitcoin community is in support of this, even though it's government led and it's government backed. Stable coins are, and it's going to be supporting the U.S. Treasury market, but this is the way to keep Bitcoin from kind of being, embargoed and removed from being, used by members of the society to spend and engage in commerce. So,
yeah, I think I'm pro freedom, right? Like more options for people is a good thing, and but I think what I hope to see is, and again, this is like, we're probably not going to see this because this is historically the incentive structure is broken. But, I think fiat currencies, if they're going to continue to exist 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, they need to offer some kind of incentive. Like they can't just continue to steal from the population, right? Via inflation, via money printing, via all this stuff. They're going to have to actually provide some value, some reason to hold that fiat currency. Now, I think, I don't know. But I think that there's going to be more accountability with things like Bitcoin, which is an amazing thing. So hopefully we see it. But I would not be shorting Bitcoin at any point anytime soon, because it's unlikely that we're going to see it, at least anytime soon.
Well, what's holding fiat too is the fact that everybody uses it.
Yeah, it's like the unit of the unit of account, right? So it's the acceptability, this characteristic of money called acceptability. If fiat money has that characteristic right now, right? It's the common unit account. Yeah, I mean, well, they just have the advantage right now, right? But over time, you lose that advantage, right? As people start to wake up and realize, holy shit, I don't want to save in dollars. They keep printing it like crazy every crisis, every time something happens.
Probably the only reason we still have the momentum behind fiat right now is just because of the older population and just it just got the inertia for it. Most of the younger generations, Gen Z, they see so much of the stuff that in our economy and our politics, it's just fake.
Yeah.
So much of them are waking up to, oh yeah, this is just fake. It's all garbage.
Yeah.
And if they accept that about the money too, then it's just a time bomb. Once enough people retire, everyone's switching over to something that's actually real.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the criticisms you hear about Bitcoin is that it's not good for anything. You can't transact. You can't spend in it. But the truth of the matter is, first of all, you can.
Yeah.
But second of all, if you think about it, the fact that there's difficulty is actually a good thing, right? Well, from a time preference point of view, people should be thinking more about how they spend their money, right? I mean, we've gotten this society is so short-term time preference focused, and
that's Keynesian economics, right?
I always ask, like, when someone says, "Oh, Bitcoin's not good for anything," like, okay, what's a ruler stick good for? Measuring length. Okay, that's what the Bitcoin's good for. Measuring value. That in itself is its utility.
Yeah.
We all have to get onto the same standard because for decades it's all been the U.S. dollar standard that we measure value, but Bitcoin is a ruler that actually stays consistent. It's not changing every day.
How can you use a measuring system to measure the economy when the ruler changes constantly, which is what happens with fiat money when you print trillions out of thin air?
For the metric system, they had what was the definition of a kilogram, and it's like a platinum thing that's sitting under a bunch of glasses to prevent any decay or anything, and they still found it was losing a couple of atoms every year, and they flipped out. And that's what they use, just measure weight.
Right. Yeah.
And we have something that is measuring the value of things, and it's being horribly devalued and changed and altered every day.
And you think about it, like I think there was recently this week wasn't the anniversary of the spending on pizza. So So look, I mean, if people start to think more about, okay, I have this Bitcoin and I have this thing I could spend it on, but if I spend my Bitcoin now on something, the cost of it is, could be infinite into the future. So it makes you think a bit more about, do I need to be spending my hard-earned wealth on this item for immediate gratification? Now, for food, we're going to spend it. For a variety of things, you're always going to spend. But maybe on the margin, society needs a little bit of a discipline agent. Right?
Of course,
just like the government needs a little bit of a discipline agent.
That's why gold was historically such a good thing, because
I always hear people saying the counter saying, "Oh, why would I spend it if it's going to be worth more tomorrow?" And my answer is, "Well, yeah, but I need lunch today."
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying not to spend it, but at the same time, I'm holding on to this so I can get resources when I need them. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to sell them.
And we should be, I don't know, shouldn't we be having that active discussion with ourselves about how we spend our stored energy and our stored wealth? Right?
I mean, that's
as opposed to just saying, here's my Amex, boom,
of
boom,
course,
boom,
of
boom,
course,
all day, every day.
Yeah, duh. But again, that goes against the principles of Keynesian economics, which is, John Maynard Keynes. We want to stir animal spirits. We want to spend money on cheap Chinese-made bullshit toys that break in 6 weeks or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, do we really need, like, it's even like, you have a wife, you have kids, like, you see it, right? Like, I see it. I'm like, why are we buying all this useless crap? Like, why? Right? Like, why are we doing this? Right? But it's become so ingrained in the cultural ethos. And it's like, honestly, it's decay it's like a decay of the culture. It's like a delay of gratification. It's decaying, like, just long-term thinking, strategic planning. Like, it decays all of those things, this whole Keynesian system that we live in.
Well, I remember, like, how many brands that we know nowadays that they used to be the staple of quality that they're just garbage now. I know Craftsman back in, like, the 70s or 80s or something. If you wanted to get a good quality tool that was going to last you the rest of your life, you buy a Craftsman. And nowadays, I hear they're like garbage. Like, they'll break in like a couple of years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, doesn't the circulating supply also help the price of it go up, like with Bitcoin? So it's like kind of we need to spend it in order to.
When you say that one more time, the circulating supply.
Yeah, like because if you just held on, like if that person didn't buy the pizza at the time he did, and he still held on to it, like the fact that it's not moving that Bitcoin's not moving around. The circulating supply increases the price. No, isn't that one of the factors that help?
You're saying that it's not being spent as much. I mean, yes. When you're on a sound money, you live in it's more deflationary, right? So the cost of things will go down over time, which is the natural state of things, right? We become more efficient. We can make things better, cheaper, better. The cost of those things goes down, which is like this is deflation, right? Technology is extremely deflationary. We see it in some things today, even with the massive money printing, like TVs, for example, or like electronics are a great example. You know, the problem is food and costs that should be going down over time because we become more efficient as a society, better technology, et cetera, have not gone down. But stuff like TVs are like some of the very few things that have, right? But it really, as time goes on, everything should become cheaper, more abundant, and easier to produce, and that should be reflected in the price. That's my thought. What do you guys think about what Percent says here? What he said in that thing we reacted to?
Yeah, look, I think this is, we've touched on this a little bit, but it's the administration, the government recognizing that it needs to embrace digital asset technology. And yes, it needs to embrace all digital assets for a variety of reasons, speculation, whatever. There needs to be proper regulation on meme coins and on NFTs and all this other garbage. But really, what is of the most concern to the administration and to the Treasury is stable coins and demand for T-bills, right? And so they need to lock in proper regulatory metrics in order to allow stablecoin growth to continue, because stablecoins are the number one largest growing segment of the T-bill demand populace. Yeah. And as foreign governments take down their share of Treasury holdings, we need to find another place to get the buyers. And so part of what they're going to do is they're going to force the banks to do it in the U.S., but it's not going to be enough. And so a great place to find demand for Treasuries is abroad in citizens who historically have had no access to dollar funding markets. And this is really a perfect fit. And the administration realizes that, and so they are moving aggressively to do it. There's a massive hole, and it needs to be filled because the deficits are exploding, and we cannot be in a situation where we have this kind of sudden stop where foreign central banks don't show up, and then the Fed has to come in. I think what they're trying to do here is they're trying to bring in stablecoin demand before the Fed has to come in and start buying the paper again, right? Because once the Fed comes in and buys again, then people are, there's going to be a fucking problem.
It's extremely smart game theoretical play.
It just sounds like a Band-Aid, though, because, okay, we're going to open up to these other outside markets, but, okay, eventually that they're going to get their fill, or they're going to not going to want to buy them anymore, so you're just going to be right back in the same situation. You're just buying yourself
I don't know, man. Half the planet doesn't have, like, there's, like, billions of people that don't have access to, like, any kind of money that's like,
but we're still having bigger deficits more than ever, so we're just gonna have to keep selling
They're not,
more.
I mean, but you're like, I agree with you, but like their barometer is like, hey, I live under a corrupt regime that hyperinflates my money by 1,000%
I'm not saying
over
it's
the
not
course
going
of
to
3
help
months.
people for a couple of years. I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but I'm saying it's only going to be for a couple of years, maybe a decade or something like that.
We've had the worst inflation that we've had in like 50 years, and like
look,
society's still going along here just
what
fine.
What we're trying to do, I think, is we're trying to delay the inevitable, and in that period of time, hopefully we find the productivity miracles necessary to actually really drive real economic growth in a non-inflationary way. Some of those productivity miracles would be nuclear fusion, maybe some more enhanced AI accelerate, various medical breakthroughs that we talked about a couple times ago.
I think we're already getting some of that
stuff.
Yeah.
So there's we need to buy time in order to get there. But you're right. I mean, but if we don't get, there's still a chance that it's not enough. We don't buy ourselves enough time, and then we are really screwed. But to not try and attack that market of global citizens who need access to dollars, who live in repressive regimes that are inflationary.
Right. I mean, Band-Aids are still good for things. They do help the problem, but it buys you time until you can appropriately treat it.
Yeah.
And hoping we're going to have better productivity, more productivity so we can grow our way out of it. But until we get off of the fiat standard, it's only ever going to be a stopgap measure.
Yeah, but governments are loath to relinquish that power, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so
well, that's what
they're going to try to do the fiat thing for longer.
Wasn't Hayek the one that said it's like you just have to implement a solution that they can't stop, or something?
Well, Friedrich Hayek had a
Something
quote
like
that says, we'll never have a good money again until we take the thing out of the hands of government. But the only way that we can do that is some sneaky, sly, roundabout way.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what he said, right? And Bitcoin is that sly, sneaky, roundabout way. But, again, these changes don't play out, over the course of, I think, they could stretch this for 10, 20 years. If we get massive growth, if they thread the needle, if they deregulate, if they open up federal lands for, all sorts of development, and AI keeps adding productivity, and,
Well, then we're also dealing with the population problem. We don't have as many people
Trump,
to actually...
these baby savings plans and, adding tax credits. I mean, even
with
these
the
things,
baby savings plans,
these things
it's gonna
do
be
work.
15 years before that bears the real fruit you need it to.
Possibly. I mean, we're going to have to see how it plays out. But, these things do work. I mean, there's other countries that are trying to incentivize. I think it's like Mongolia or something where they give.
I thought it was Hungary.
There's Hungary's doing it, but Mongolia's. I think it's Mongolia. They do it really cool. Where if you have 3 babies, you get like an award, and I think after 5, you get to meet the president or the dictator of the country.
There was a pope that said for every 3rd baby you have, you get to have a picture with the pope or something.
Oh, really?
Like
The Pope's doing it too, right? But there's one in Mongolia. They do it really cool. It's like an award ceremony where the mother of if you have 5 babies and you contribute to society, it's like a huge it's very celebrated. So you get to actually go meet the head of Mongolia or whatever and take a picture and get a ribbon and stuff. So it's quite a thing. Paul, you're might have to look it up. Let's see what Lawrence Lepard said here. Our regular or our runway pod guest, Larry Lepard. Let's see what he says. Basent, not worried about U.S. debt dynamics. Larry says, official denial. Why now? Well, Larry, I think it's because he has to deny. He has to say that. You know what I mean? That's his job, right?
It's the phrase you never need to believe something in politics until it's been officially denied.
Yeah. So
there we are.
There you are, right? Exactly. Go to Larry's other post. I thought it was interesting as well. Let's share it. So it's a post by Alex Gladstein that says, absolutely crazy. Hundreds of millions of people saw their wage and savings technology lose 15%, 30%, 50%, 75%, even 90% of its value last year, right? So when we're talking about all these other countries that have literally billions of people, imagine if you tell them, oh, you're only going to lose 8% of your value this year because we're going to print, $1 trillion or whatever. They'll take that all day over losing 90% of their value of the money's purchasing power, right?
But it's like saying, oh, you're not going to die 90% this year. You're only going to die 8%. All right, well, you're still dying.
I hear you, but people, it's like 10% for the big guy. People are like, okay, we'll pay for 10% for the big guy. When it's 90% for the big guy, though, you got a much bigger problem. You've got war and you've got riots in the street, right? So, I think the devil's in the details. So that's my take there. So yeah, good post. Larry says, this is why we Bitcoin, wholesale theft. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, this is why Bitcoin is the best savings technology in the world, right? Why would you not store your wealth in the hardest, soundest money to ever exist on the face of the earth, right? That governments can't print, that they can't steal from you, that you have full self-sovereignty with. I think it's a fucking no-brainer. But this is why we are continuing to talk about this and educate people. And if you're listening to the show, thanks for listening in, and give us a like, follow, and ask a question, and we'll get you a Bitcoin conference ticket to Las Vegas. All right, let's go to the. Did you have a post from Samuel Arms? Because we kind of talked a little bit about.
So there's some breaking news that a judge blocked the effort to ban Harvard. This whole situation. So if you want to unpack that, Sam commented on it.
Okay, let's read the take first. Do you have the Tony Suruga on X? Here we go. Another dipshitiot activist judge. Judge temporarily blocks Trump administration's effort to ban Harvard University from enrolling international students. A federal judge in Massachusetts granted Harvard an order on Friday that prevents the Department of Homeland Security from revoking the school's certification to enroll international students. The decision comes one day after DHS told the school that foreign students must transfer from the university or risk losing their visa status. I don't know enough about all of this just yet to weigh in on an opinion, but let's hear what Sam has to say. I'm sure the judge was in Washington, D.C. or some other extremely left-leaning area. But let's see what Sam has to say here. Let's react. Let's listen to what he has to say and react.
Let me explain how Trump is bankrupting Harvard. So Trump already ordered that the Department of Education suspend any government contracts that Harvard has or any Harvard affiliates. But here's what a lot of people don't know. Remember how when you go to a school, you have in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition? And if you stayed in-state, it was a lot cheaper. Well, if you're out of country, the tuition is incredibly expensive And out-of-country tuition has been the main way universities have been making money over the past decade, specifically from Chinese students. So Trump essentially is going to bankrupt Harvard because he took away all their government contracts, and now their biggest source of funding, which is students from outside the country, is now going to be cut off. And the final nail in the coffin is going to be when they go after Harvard's endowment fund and start taxing it. So it is very possible that in the next 5 years, Harvard as a school goes bankrupt. Let me explain how Trump is.
It's kind of wild. Wow. What do you guys' thoughts are? What do you guys think about all this?
I'd like to hear what their students at the School of Business think about this.
Well, Larry was a Harvard MBA scholar, I believe, and he called them out about printing all the money for the 2008 financial crisis. And his, if you haven't got a copy of the big print, highly recommend getting it. Cool story, but Larry actually stood up when they said they were doing a victory lap after like bailing out the banks and doing all that shit in 2008. And they were like, "Does anybody think this was like at a Harvard MBA event? They were like, "Does anybody think what we did was wrong?" And Larry like stood up and said, "Yeah, I think what you guys did was completely wrong." People were they didn't take too kindly to that, but shows a lot of balls on Larry's part. But yeah, if you haven't, definitely pick up a copy of the big print and check it out. We also have a podcast series on our other channel, Cypherpunk'd, where we go into detail, and I do like one-on-ones with authors. So we're releasing that series as we speak. So highly recommend giving it a listen.
I mean, I think it's a complicated issue. I think but there's a free speech component to this, which I think needs to be respected by the administration about what the impetus behind this, and whether or not that is has justified the reaction, and is that infringing on free speech, and should be should that be tolerated or not? That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is this tax component and the status of private universities and their tax incentives, and then that's what we discussed earlier about the student loan situation and what that means. So this is a very complicated topic where I think we're just scratching the surface here. Some of the issues. Now, I don't think as a country we should be denying international students from receiving education. We want the best and brightest kind of coming to America to learn, but if they're just going to come here to learn and then leave and provide nothing back to America for that that status, they get the right to be here by being extended a preferential visa to be here to learn.
That right can be revoked. I mean,
that right can be revoked, and so that again, this is another thing about immigrant. How do we think about these things?
I don't even know if it's an actual right. It's more of a
it's a privilege that's been extended, and so what are the rules behind those? I don't know if those rules have been dictated, right? I don't know what the if you are caught going to a free speech related protest on campus that your visa can be revoked. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that being something that a reason to be revoked, because yes, you may today it may be we've decided it's because you went to a pro-Palestine march, but maybe tomorrow you went to some other thing that the government deemed to be something that they didn't like, and that was the reason that your visa is being revoked, and then all of a sudden we're really infringing on free speech. So I think that there are a lot of things we should be treading carefully.
I think the ones they get removed over that were like violent. They were taking over buildings and stuff. So
I understand. But
also at the same time, like, citizens should get have more protections than somebody's just here on a visa. Like, if you're here and you're saying, overthrow the American government, this president's bad, he's terrible, and you're here on a visa, one, you can't vote. So, and I don't really want to care about your opinion because you can't vote, and you didn't grow up here. You're a guest here. Stop causing trouble for us citizens.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the whole thing. I'm kind of like in the middle, but at the same time, it's like I feel like there does need to be a distinction. Like, if you are an American citizen versus like you should have every aspect of your constitutional rights. That being said, if you are not an American citizen, I don't think you should be treated like trash. But at the same time,
well, just make sure to preface that it's if you're breaking the law, right? You're not saying obviously if you're here on a visa and you're threatening violence, right? then you should not have the same privileges that citizens have, right? Because you're here as a visitor.
The question is, when you submit to that visa, right? When you get the privilege of getting your visa, what do you agree to get to that visa? And I think there is some language in there that, like, hey, if you become a problem for the U.S. or whatever, like, you know, you're a guest. You know, this isn't your house. It's kind of like when you go in your own house. Like, if you want to fucking, you know, take a fucking ketchup and squirt it all over the walls, like, that's your fucking house. Yeah. But if you're in somebody else's house and you fucking do that, you're gonna get knocked the fuck out. I mean, that's, you know, it makes sense.
FA equals FO squared.
Yeah. Right? But this is how Trump does things, right? He does this blanket approach, right? Every international student at Harvard is out, right? Like, because he's so fed up with whatever's gripe is bothering, whatever reason that he has to do something. Well, and for the gripes are multifaceted, but also it's the judges and the things he feels like he's being attacked. I'm putting these policies in, and these judges are saying I can't do that. Well, and so that's bothering him as well.
But you're saying if he feels attacked. Well, there's also evidence he is being attacked.
Yeah. No. So and the way that he responds is with these. Mm-hmm. Arguably egregious policies of every international student is banned, right? And so then everyone's like, whoa, wait a minute. But what he's doing is this is how he breaks the glass. So he shakes the table. He's like, I flipped the table over, so now we can have proper negotiations about what is the
big ass type thing where he's setting the frame of reference all the way to the extreme and letting you walk him back. Yeah, because he knows he's not going to get every one of them, but that's where he wants to start to go backwards.
I think part of it too is that they're doubling down on their racist admissions policies, and I think that's a big part of this. Is that you know, they've basically said, like, hey, we're still going to let people in based off of what their race is and deny people based on what their race is. And I think, like, they're doubling down on that instead of saying, hey, like, we know this violates the Constitution. Well, so there's that element of, like, when you get public funds, if you're getting public funds, you've got to, like, you know, respect the Constitution, or you just don't get public grants and public funds and all that, and, like, you can have a racist institution.
Well, there's also the extra complication where maybe there's a U.S. citizen that is better than one of the foreign students, but they pick the foreign students because they pay them more. Right? Yeah. And maybe the U.S. citizen should have preferential admissions to the to a U.S. college as opposed to a foreign.
Well,
student.
Certainly that should be the case in all state colleges, but for private institutions, I think there's a difference. And
the key is they're getting federal money,
but they're getting federal money. So are they really private if they're getting federal money? Are they really private if they have there's no tax on their endowments? I mean, and I think this is Trump's way of saying, or acknowledging, this whole system is bullshit. It needs to be uprooted and quickly. And the only way we're going to do it is if I start, you know, doing crazy things like going after the biggest, most prestigious college in the country and saying, you guys are fucking up and I'm not happy with it. And, you know, and I didn't go to Harvard. I went to Penn. So not me, but him. And so that's his style. That's the brashness. That's the way that he gets things done. And we may not like it, and some people may not like it. Some things he does I don't like, but this is like he's getting some stuff done. He's having the conversation, and he's touching on relevant conversations that are clearly irritating larger and larger parts of the society, and that are like commanding. We start doing things about it, right? That's something over the last 4 years. We didn't do anything. It's like we didn't do anything. It's almost like we got stopped in time.
All they did was bring 20 plus million.
And they were happy, and everyone was kind of happy, you know, because the stock market went up. And, you know, and everyone felt better.
But people with 401ks were happy. Right. The average blue collar person was not happy because they just got screwed.
Yeah. Right. But the people in power and the elites felt very happy.
The coastal elites were happy. I think that was a good way to think about it.
But now it's that those days they're over. We're starting to, you know, do things again that are going to change the way society works and structured. And look, this administration is going to make mistakes. They've already made mistakes. They're going to make more mistakes, and we have to we should hold them accountable when they do stupid things, but we should also give them the ability to do some of these things.
When you explain it like that, it also reminds me of, like, you can't just go on, like a football coach just can't go onto a field and say, all right, guys, we're going to go stretch now. Like, they have to walk on the field and command, like, hey, we're going out to the, we're going to stretch, so we got to move.
Yeah.
So in politics, it's probably similar. You can't just go out there and say, oh, okay, this is what we're going to do. Let's go out there, flip a table and say, hey, this is where we're going to start. What's the next step?
Yeah. I think B&B here says, no, the judges are activists. Yeah, I agree. A lot of these judges are activists.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
We've seen judicial actions that have, like, in the first 3 months of one presidency that we haven't seen in 30 years. So I do agree with you. It's.
I mean, that's
a lot of judge shopping. They're going to these districts, like, where they tried to prosecute Trump. They go to, like, 90-10, Washington, D.C., New York City. They go to these districts where, like, 90% of the people are, like, lean one way politically and try to have an impartial, fair trial there. I mean, good luck,
I mean, that is the one thing I always hand it to Democrats of they don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
They will find some other way to get what they think needs to be done, and they will do anything to get it to try and make it make sense. Even if it doesn't make any sense, they'll say, oh, no, it does. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, yeah, but we got it passed, so you have to deal with it now.
It was like the judge with the MS-13 gang member. The Democratic guy's going to flying to El Salvador to have margaritas with the guy. He's got like a Mariposa skull, cross in the skull, or no, what is it? Mariposa, smiley, MS, and then a cross for the one, and then he's got the MS-13 thing on his fucking wrist with the skull. Beat up his fucking wife. She's got sworn affidavits. They caught him in the van with like 20 people in the back who had no ID, smuggling him in. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's crazy. Well, let's play this Mike Benz clip, because Mike Benz really is talking about how Harvard is an extension of the deep state and how they utilize them. Let's see what he has to say. It's only 34 seconds.
Talbot told the New Yorker in 1995, it's like working with a friendly independent entity, if not a government. We try to synchronize our approach with Germany, France, Great Britain, and with George Soros. This is the fucking Deputy Secretary of State saying State Department policy has to be synchronized with George Soros. Isn't that an incredible quote? We have to synchronize our foreign policy with George Soros because he's got the money to make it happen, and his network and his banker friends. Talbot told the New Yorker.
He's always digging up and finding stuff. But what's
just
it do with
real
Harvard?
quick.
Have anything to do with Harvard? Go up. I thought that had to do with Harvard.
Yeah, he tied it back to that. But
he says, by this way, the same logic applies to the Harvard endowment, which is the State Department effectively synchronizes policy with, maximizing the returns of the Harvard Corporation, and then the people inside our government who do that synchronizing then get cushy Harvard sinecures after sinecures. I don't know what sinecures are, but
yeah, that's a new one.
Yeah, ask Grok what that word even means. Sinecures. Maybe he meant something else. Maybe it was just a typo.
It's like professorships.
I've
right?
never heard
Maybe
of that
like,
before.
Like the spoils, right?
Yeah, define sinecure as a position or job that requires little to no work or effort, but still provides financial benefit.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's what they do. It's just the same thing with all these NGOs and why we can't get the fucking Doge cuts spent, because they fucking, like, all these Senate people and Congress people have their fucking family members on these NGOs, and they're getting fucking millions of dollars from the taxpayer. It's insane. The judges that are ruling in D.C., like, you look at what the cases they're ruling on, is like such a conflict. Like, the one judge who was blocking the immigration stuff, like, his daughter or his wife was like on this anti-immigration board. I mean, it's so corrupt, so fucking corrupt. Paul, what did you have to say? Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good, man. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, what we're learning more and more is that the institutions that people have held in high regard in the society in America they need to crumble because they've been corrupt and they've been corrupted, right? I mean, whether it's big pharma, big food, big energy, education, the deep state, right? All of these institutions that have kind of kept those in power, those in wealth, with wealth. We've exacerbated wealth inequality in this country to record levels, and people are fucking fed up with all the bullshit and the lying and the corruption, and you finally have elected somebody who is tired of it also. And maybe he's not the most, not the ideal messenger. He's a New York City real estate billionaire, but he has his pulse on. He knows what's fucking right and what's wrong and what's bullshit.
He's at least honest about it.
And he's honest about that.
Well, it's also, you can just... He's perfect image for what all of the media will do once they turn on you, because he was a darling of the media.
Well,
in
Elon
the
Musk
90s.
too. Look what the hell Elon's gone through.
Big media. I mean,
insane.
He was in rap songs. Trump.
Yeah.
He was in rap songs.
He
He
was
was in
in movies.
WWE. He was in movies.
Yeah.
He was TV. Everything.
He was
Like,
Oprah's best friend, and all of a sudden, it's like it's
he
just
was on,
crazy how fake people are.
He
How
had the nicest clothing line.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a cameo on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
yeah.
And so
Home Alone 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he everywhere. Everyone loved Trump, and then he got into politics saying, "Hey, this is wrong. This is corrupt." And then on a dime, everyone turned on him.
Play the Dave
all of the
Chappelle
media
skit
stuff.
on Paul on Trump. Can you find the Dave Chappelle skit on Trump, Paul? I don't know if it'll be on next.
When he was
great.
34, he also said he didn't want to do it, and he knew a lot of great business people that would be great for the job.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, the Dave Chappelle skit on why Trump is so popular. If you haven't seen this, you got to watch the shit. It's just classic. Play it. We'll react to it.
A lot of you don't understand why Trump was so popular, but I get it because I hear it every day. He was very loved. And the reason he was loved is because people in Ohio have never seen somebody like him. He's what I call an honest liar. At that first debate, I've never seen a white male billionaire screaming at the top of his lungs, "This whole system is rigged." And across the stage was a white woman, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, sitting over there looking at him like, "No, it's not." I said, "Now, wait a minute, bro. It's what he said." And the moderator said, "Well, Mr. Trump, if in fact the system is rigged, what would be your evidence?" Remember what he said, bro? He said, "I know the system is rigged because I use it." I said, "God damn." And then Hillary Clinton tried to punch him in the taxes. She said, "This man doesn't pay his taxes." He shot right back. "That makes me smart." And then he said, "If you want me to pay my taxes, then change the tax code. But I know you won't because your friends and your donors enjoy the same tax breaks that I do." And with that, my friends, a star was born. Why do you don't understand?
Yeah, he's like, he's not wrong.
And see, that's
fucking nail on the head.
Yeah, that's the great thing about Trump is he changes the conversation and reframes it because everyone's like, "Oh, you're not paying your taxes. You're not paying your taxes." Like, yeah, and neither of the people that give you money are either.
Right. And the criticism, a lot of the criticism that he gets, rightfully so, in some degrees, is that he's exploiting the system still for his own good and his own enrichment. But yes, that is a problem. But that doesn't mean that the system isn't fucking rigged and broken.
Well, it's also,
we shouldn't not go after these things just because he's also abusing.
This is like the Democrat logic about the stable coin act. It's like they didn't want to like pass the bill on crypto because Trump has a crypto token now or whatever.
Okay.
So we're gonna hold up the whole world because Trump has because Orange Man bad.
He's not
it's like,
exploiting
are you
the system.
Fucking
He's
idiot?
just playing the game by the rules they gave him. It's like, all right, these are the rules. I'm gonna figure out how to best utilize the rules to win the game and have my business grow and expand. And then you're like, oh, he's exploiting it. No, he's not. He's following the rules. If you don't like the rules, vote for changes, like he's saying.
It's like what you always tell me: tax evasion is illegal and tax avoidance is smart.
Yep,
that's
exactly
the way fucking it's set up. I mean, it's just fact.
Yeah, but I think this Harvard thing is another. It's another system in this country, higher education, that everybody fucking knows is broken, and everybody knows has corruption and lying and greed. And no one's fucking doing anything about it because so many people are getting, what's the word? Sinecures? Right?
Sinecures,
so many people
and
NGOs.
NGOs.
And so many people are getting paid off of it. You go into government. You go.
This is what's wrong with the fiat system.
Even people that go into government, they leave. Like Larry Summers went to government. He's been in Democratic governments. He's the president of Harvard, or he was, right? I mean, and now he's a professor at Harvard. It's like the revolving door you go
between
into government and higher education is fucking wild.
I mean, and you look at these Senate people; they have like 100 million, like Nancy Pelosi. Look at these fucking people. It's like,
well, the issue
you're literally on a $200,000 salary. How the fuck do you have like $20 million, $50 million? It's just silly.
Well, the issue is, can be summarized in the saying, you'll never convince a man of something when his paycheck depends on not believing it.
Yeah.
And that's what it is with so many of these things. Is like, oh, yes, it's all corrupt, but I get paid from the corruption, so I'm not going to believe it's corrupt because otherwise I don't have a paycheck.
Yeah. And that system, it's reaching its end game of people putting up with it. And I think Bitcoin is like,
that's what I was saying.
Bitcoin is
Gen
like
Z.
the antivirus to this whole fucking thing. And I think like people are really feeling that, and that's why so many of us are part of Bitcoin. And honestly, like, I don't know. I think you can prolong the fiat system like the way it is, but like in its current form, the way it exists, the way it's happening, it just can't go on forever. Like I said, like there has to be. You're taking too much and providing too few benefit. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like with Gen Z, the younger generations, they don't have the same conditioning that we do, so they look at things with fresh eyes and they can see, oh, this is bullshit. Oh, this is bullshit. Oh, this is bullshit.
Not only that, but they also are able to consume independent media now in a way that they were never able to consume it before, and that fucking terrifies the deep state and the elite. Right, the fact that you can watch and listen to independent podcasts and shows, even the fact that this little podcast has a platform to do and speak however it wants, and it may have 5 people listen, it may have 500 or 5. Doesn't fucking matter.
Apparently, we got 1,100.
Yeah, so 1,100 people have consumed a type of media that would never have been able to be consumed even a decade ago, let alone 20, 30, 40 years ago.
I mean, our podcasts are the equivalent of the printing press, because printing press people would have leaflets put out all the time. And so now we have something that people can listen to.
Right.
The whole audiobook.
But what this independent media is doing is they are exposing the lies.
Yeah.
Right? They are going out and with using the internet and using the resources available, and spearheaded by Joe Rogan's and the like, and there's a running list of people who are doing and replicating what he's been doing. It's just calling the bullshit out, and the criticism. Oh, you're platforming racists and bigots and people who can never ever be platformed before. But again, maybe that's true too. But the 99.9% of the time, they're just platforming and speaking about things that people want to hear about, and really are exposing the lies that the government is telling you, that CNN will never tell you, and MSNBC will never tell you, and even Fox News will never tell you. Right?
You saw the South American president and what Trump did with him, right?
South African, yeah.
So he's talking about like, oh, there's no genocide or anything. He's like, really? Here's the
video.
Here's the video of all of your Congress people calling for genocides. Here are the news articles of the deaths of everything, and you're telling me it's not happening.
Find this BBC quote. Here, this is like, let's see here. There was did they change it? Oh, this is my favorite. White crosses shown by Trump, not graves, says man who erected them. And then they did like some fact check. I don't know if this was the exact one, but there was like a fact check on it. Like, they're not graves.
They're just markers for bodies in the ground.
They're just markers for all the people like that they have names on. Like, they're not the actual. They might not be the actual grave site where those people were buried.
Memorial.
It's a memorial of all of the people who were murdered. But you see, this is the type of fucking bullshit that these propagandists put out.
Immediately after this,
I mean, fucking shame on you, BBC News. I mean, fucking shame on you.
Immediately after this, they were, I don't remember who the current White House press secretary is, but she was getting a question from like NBC or something. The lady's like, how do you guys stop these unverified the facts about the killings in South Africa? She's like, what are you talking about? We have the news articles. You have them saying it
was
from...
Caroline Levitt, and she actually said, and actually the story came from the AP.
Yeah,
who is in the room right now, and they're the most independent of all of you, and they're the ones who actually. So if you have a problem with the facts, call them.
Yeah. My favorite was like when all the election fraud was happening and going on. It was like I pulled up an old BBC News article about like things to watch out for with fraudulent elections, and it's like all the things happening in the American election, like results not given for weeks after the election, like just classic.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, look, play this clip. I mean, these fucking people are such lying pieces of shit.
Yamish, good to see you.
Hi, good. Thanks for taking the question.
Sure.
The president showed a video that he said showed more than 1,000 burial sites of white South Africans that he said were murdered. We know that that was not true and that the video wasn't showing that. So I wonder, why did the president choose to show that?
True, Yamish?
It's not true that the video was showing a burial site. It is unsubstantiated that that's the case.
No, it is true that video showed the crosses that represent...
Yeah, this is what they fucking do. Pause it for a second.
The video.
This is what these fucking liars do. They just fucking frame and try to lie about everything. It's like
no. There's a difference between like framing, which it can still be
technically.
I mean, we're talking about framing.
This is framing.
Honest,
this is what this is.
This is straight up lying.
This is straight up lying.
It's like, oh, this is unsubstantiated. It's from your news articles.
Well, yeah. What they're saying though is that people aren't actually buried there, so they're using that as framing to try to say this is a fucking lie. Like
they're saying
check.
Unsubstantiated murders. No, the murders have been substantiated.
Play it again. So I don't. Did she say unsubstantiated murders? Play it again.
The video that he said showed more than 1,000 burial sites.
No,
keep waiting.
South Africans that he said were murdered. We know that that was not true and that the video wasn't showing that. So I wonder, why did the president choose to show that?
I think it's just crafty framing.
The video was showing a burial site. It is unsubstantiated that that's the case.
No, it is
unsubstantiated.
That
was the case. It was a burial site.
It's not a burial site. It's a representation. You see what she's saying? They're playing semantic games. Because pause it for a second. Because this is what they do. This is how fucking evil they are. They know that the majority of fucking people are just going to read the fucking top line and be like, oh, Trump's lying again, right? They know that. This is all framing and gaslighting and manipulation that they do.
Well, then I'll go with the Michael Malice quote. They're factual, they're factual,
sometimes
not truthful.
They are. Sometimes they're fucking wrong on everything. But on this one, they're technically factual.
Yeah, they're
but
factual,
fucking
not
doing
truthful.
a disservice to the fucking world and everybody that they're supposed to serve. I mean, they are fucking abomination on society with this type of bullshit. But you better believe this is like deep state bullshit, propaganda bullshit. To try to fucking gaslight and push forward these false narratives and these lies. So shame on BBC. Shame on them. Keep it going. Paul. We can start it again.
In South Africa, about white farmers who have been killed and politically persecuted because of the color of their skin. And those crosses are representing their lives. Those crosses are representing their lives in the fact that they are now dead and their government did nothing about it. Are you disputing that there's no...
The video showed what the president claimed it showed, because it did not show that. But even more,
see, they know what they're doing.
Who at the
No,
White
it did
House,
show that. It showed white crosses representing people who have perished because of racial persecution.
The videos that the president shows, and what protocols are in place when there's unsubstantiated information.
This fucking
being
reporter
put
is
out
such a piece
for
of
the world
shit.
And world leadership.
Yamiche, what's unsubstantiated about the video? The video shows crosses that represent the dead bodies of people who were racially persecuted by their government. In fact, the Associated Press, of all places, has a picture of that very monument, and the caption from the Associated Press is, "Each cross marks a white farmer who has been killed in a farm murder." So it is substantiated, not just by that video and the physical evidence that everybody saw on display in the Oval Office, but also by another outlet in this room, the Associated Press. So you should take it up with them if you believe the claim is unsubstantiated.
Great takedown by
and that's a
Caroline
ridiculous
Levitt.
line of questioning.
Yeah,
John,
absolutely
go ahead.
ridiculous. What a piece of shit reporter.
Caroline Levitt is a beast.
She really is, man.
Every press conference, you could tell, like, she is so prepared every single time to call bullshit. And you know what else is refreshing is that when they ask her a question that she doesn't know the answer to, she just says, "I don't know. I'll get back to you," and we fucking move on.
Yeah.
Like, now, look, a lot of there are things that come out of her mouth that are a little bit Ministry of Truth type statements.
I mean, her job is to spin.
That is her job. So if you are looking for somebody who, you know, supports you and the administration, what the administration is trying, she is a beast and an incredible press secretary.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to watch. I mean, the takedowns are epic.
Yeah, no doubt about it. She did. I mean, she just crushed it. All right, let's get a couple more takes in here, Paul. What do we got next?
Not otherwise. And so now I'm in this absurd situation where I was born in South Africa but cannot get a license to operate in Starlink because I'm not black.
Well, it looks
Does
like
that
that's
seem
about.
right to
It
you?
looks
Does
like
that
that.
seem right to you?
Looks like that's about to change.
I just asked you a question. Please answer.
Here's another
Does that
piece of
seem
shit
right to you?
interviewer.
Well, those rules were designed to bring.
Yes or no?
Those rules were designed to bring about an era of more economic equality in South Africa.
Is it wrong?
And it
Pause this
looks
shit for a
like-
second. He's asking her, this is the problem with people that don't have fucking basic first principles thinking. He asked her a question. Is it right to basically deny somebody from having a business license based on the color of her skin? And her response is, instead of saying, of course it's wrong, we should never discriminate based on the color of someone's skin to operate a fucking business. She says, these rules are designed to do this or that. Fuck that. That's racist. She's a racist piece of shit. That's what she is, that woman. A racist piece of shit. That's my take. Let's go on.
It's amazing how good the left has been at projecting.
It's unbelievable. We let people get away with this shit. You know, Elon was like, kept talking. If someone said that to me, I would say, you're a racist piece of shit if you fucking believe that. That's what I would say.
100%. You got to be consistent.
You got to
right?
be
That's what
consistent. And we got to call. It's time to start pushing back on this propaganda bullshit and start calling it out, because that's what she is. She's a racist.
But what's funny is, people don't consider her a racist because she's essentially being racist towards whites, and her probably being white, they're saying, "Oh, that's not racist. That's just social justice."
It reminds me of
what's funny is, hold on one second. What's funny is that they don't realize that they're setting the groundwork for it to be turned around against them, right? This kind of, if you set the precedent for this kind of discrimination, as always, once another party gets into power, that can quickly be turned against you. So it's
don't just comical.
Know what can of worms are opening.
It's fucking comical. It reminds me of, you guys are one of my favorite shows of all time, The Chappelle Show. You ever watch The Chappelle Show? Yeah. You remember his scene where he was blind and he didn't know he was black and he was being a racist? You remember that? I can't remember what it was. A classic. One of Dave's classic scenes. It's fucking hilarious, man. I mean, like, bring back the fucking Chappelle Show. That was such a funny ass show. But yeah, like, that's what this is. I mean, and we just got to start calling it out, right? Just got to start calling it out. But you can finish the clip, Paul.
The government has found a way around those rules for you.
I asked you a question.
This is your interview. Everyone wants to hear from you.
I asked you a question. Yes or no?
Not
Racist
for me.
laws, yes or no?
Not for me to answer. I have got a question for you about your government work, though, and the amount of savings.
Why do you like racist laws?
This is
Elon's
not for
so
me
good.
to answer. Come on.
Yes, it is.
Now, you wouldn't be trying to dodge a question.
You have to
That
ask a
is difficult
question.
for me to
Projection.
answer.
Clayton
Say.
Bigsby, that's what
you
it
had
is.
some, not other.
Phil
Freaking
says
freaking
Clayton
protection.
Bigsby.
Oh, you wouldn't be trying to dodge a question as she's dodging.
As
a
she's
question.
dodging a question. Yeah, it's like these people are unbelievable. I mean, like he was super nice with her, but I would have soured on the interview very quickly if I was him. I would have been a lot less friendly.
And well, that's why he's a billionaire.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's very true. What do you got next for us, Paul? What are you looking up here, Clayton Bigsby?
No, I just saw a recent post here from Scott Bissett, so I thought maybe we can just close out on some economical macro stuff here. I haven't read it myself yet. Let me know if there's another post you wanted to discuss.
Under the Trump administration, it's Main Street's turn to shine. Community banks have been the lifeblood of American entrepreneurship and economic growth since our nation's founding, and they remain vitally critical to economic growth. I had the privilege of joining a roundtable discussion with community bankers from around the country, including many based right here in New York City, along with some of the local small businesses they serve. We discussed the need to reduce burdensome regulation and increase financial literacy in communities so all Americans can thrive. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a positive note, right? I mean, Craig, you have any thoughts on that?
No, look, I think, deregulation of banking is something that is needed. I guess the only question, we do talk about Bitcoin a fair bit on this pod, but it's like, how much more fractional banking do we need from community banks, and is this just going to take us further down the path of, delayed time, time preference issues and funding malinvestment, and is this really good for society, right? I mean, what we need now is, strategic manufacturing. It's not, in a way it is like, wartime economy, state directed in some ways. We need to be focusing the resources in the most productive, ways. And yes, I'm not trying to say that small business shouldn't be a part of that, but, if we're just making, if we're going to have community banks just kind of make traditional loans to small business just for the sake of the fact, it's, I don't know. So again, I'm for it. I'm for deregulation. I'm trying to push the country in the most positive direction.
Yeah.
And those investments can be steered towards, the strategic manufacturing industries and not just building up excess property and, other investment properties or speculation in financial assets. Then it's a good thing. If it's
I agree.
kind of more of the same that we've seen and just at the smaller bank level, more fiat printing, look, banks create money, right? It's not just the Fed, it's banks that create money. They just go make loans and the money gets spent and that's just creating money. So if those banks are just creating bad loans and it leads to more malinvestment, then that's not a good thing. So,
the devil's in the details.
We'll see.
I think that's a good way to look at the devil's in the details. Paul, take us back to the takes real quick. Let's end on, let's see here.
I have to say,
So
I think
the big, beautiful bill passed. We haven't touched on that yet. Apparently, no more taxes on tips.
Yeah, well, I guess that passed the House. It still has to go through the Senate. Do this auto pen thing, because that's a big fucking deal. Go to that. Where was it? The picture of the auto pen. I think you went down way far. It's like near the top, I think. Oh, yeah, but this was stuff from the other day. I think it's up higher.
Try auto instead?
Yeah, try auto.
That's the sound I was trying to avoid.
Let's see here. Yeah, I think we're on yesterday still. Last week, yesterday. Go up. You got to go to the very top, brother.
Yeah, I just refreshed it because sometimes it gets wonky.
Yeah. It was down here, I think. Right there.
There.
Yeah. So this is a big fucking scandal that's been going on. So auto pens are pretty cool. Not legal, though, when requiring documents are required to be signed in person. So basically, more pardons, more, things have been signed by Biden, but I think it was like over 8,000, like thousands on the very last couple of days of his presidency. The guy's sitting in, what was it, like Turks and Caicos or St. Croix or something on the beach with his mouth open, barely alive. And they're, essentially signing thousands of documents and pardons and all sorts of stuff. I think there needs to be some heads roll. I think this is like kind of treasonous. I don't,
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff that was signed by Biden via AutoPen just needs to be reversed.
I guess there's been a whistleblower that's come forward that's kind of said like, hey, like, everybody's signing themselves pardons as they leave the sinking ship after they've raided the fucking hen house. I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. I think Trump had put a tweet out about it as well. Kind of saying like, hey, Biden would have never allowed a lot of the stuff to happen that actually happened. If you watch him for 30, 40 years of his life in office, like he wasn't for massive legal immigration and all this stuff. And he thinks that
I don't know. I think he'd sold his soul at that point.
You think so? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think he signed it, so I still think they're invalid, but I don't think he would have stopped it.
I think there's a clip of him when he was a congressman where he said on the floor that essentially, I'm your guy. I'll be your guy, whatever you want me to do. I'm that guy. And so I think he
definitely flip-flopped on a lot of his positions, which is, a lot of politicians
well,
do
if you watch,
Trump does that as well. So.
If you watch Hillary campaigning back in 2007 or something, she's big anti-immigrant.
Yeah.
And big.
Well, again, like what I said, I think the Democrats of like 20, 30 years ago are now the Republicans of today. I mean, if you look at a lot of policy stuff, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. But Paul, go back to the, let's look at the stimulus check. If you had put your stimulus check in Bitcoin, what it's worth today. There we go. So, and this is really an interesting way to think about it. And I guess we can close out on this. So any final questions that you have, we're giving away a Bitcoin 2025 ticket. So chime in, ask a question, retweet, share. It looks like anybody that has anything, get it in before we close out this episode. We're going to close on this one. Had you invested your $1,200 stimulus check, it is now worth $19,760. So in Bitcoin, if you had invested in Bitcoin. So pretty fascinating to see just how much money printing occurred. And it's kind of wild to think about like your purchasing power, right? And Bitcoin obviously has other investment reasons. So it's not just the inflation, but that's a big part of it, right? So it's interesting to look at, to really think about purchasing power over time. I know we've spent a lot of time kind of talking about that today, but
that $1,200 would have bought you about what 0.2 Bitcoin. So
yeah.
Still only worth 0.2 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
0.2 Bitcoin is 0.2 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But it's, but you could, you really could see how much fiat debasement there's been in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucking insane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of that quote. It's like you underestimate, what you can do in a day, but, people overestimate what they can do in a day, but they underestimate what they can do in a year, right? So like money is, you think about it the same way. We don't see this change. You don't really feel the slow change day to day. But people are feeling the inflation of the acceleration of certain prices from all the money printing. But this really just helps you kind of like visualize it. If you would have
taken, if you would have taken that $1,200 and put it in, U.S. Treasuries, right? Earning at the time they were earning 10-year Treasuries would have been earning 1%.
Yeah,
so
that's what I was saying.
Basically, you would have got, because that's if you would have put the whole thing in a 10-year note. Let's say if you got a perfect timing, maybe you would have got it at 1.5%. So for 5 years, you would have got 1.5% interest. So yes, the
1,500 or so.
No, not yeah. I mean, $12 $15 a year of interest. I mean, so it really just shows you kind of how you can secure your wealth from being debased away.
Yeah.
By moving it into hard assets. Gold would have helped. Gold would have been a good purchase there too.
Mm-hmm.
It would have lagged Bitcoin, but it would have certainly well outperformed putting it into a treasury or, God forbid, a JP Morgan savings account, which offers you 0 still to this day. But yeah, look, I mean, I think it really shows you that argument that from a time preference point of view, right? You got the money. You could have decided, okay, I didn't really need that. Maybe I'm middle. I didn't really need the check, but I got the check. I still have my whatever the reason, and so I'm going to save it. I didn't want to spend it. I didn't go buy anything with it, and so I just saved. Look, you could see that time preference, right? Okay, now that $1,200 is worth $19,000. Like I can probably buy a little bit more in the society today for $19,000 than I could for $1,200. That's true, right? Things haven't really. Real goods have not gone up to the same degree that Bitcoin has. So your Bitcoin's worth a lot more. I think there's a good chart. I don't know if Luke Groman tweeted it or I saw it somewhere else. Just the price of a home in Bitcoin.
We've showed it on here a couple times. But see if you can find that.
It was
Paul.
It really could have gone like from 10 down to like 1 or 2.
And then
it was
like 100 or whatever.
Yeah, no, it was like 100. Like if you just watch over the course of I think it's just 10 years. It's priced in Bitcoin, Paul. It's like a Bitcoin infographic. We've looked at it a couple times. I think we looked at it maybe last episode, but it is really striking to visualize.
That's it right there. That's it.
The first one?
I believe that's it, isn't it?
That's the one I wasn't. That's not the one I was thinking of.
But that's the median sales. Median sales price of a home divided by Bitcoin. right? So I mean, my eyes are killing me here, but that was the top left there say
there's
40?
a better visualization of it.
What does the top left say? 40. And that's there you go.
This is just over time, so you can
right.
kind of
So
see
basically
priced
the
in
median
Bitcoin.
sales. This is 6 years ago, right? We've gone from 40, right, to
we're under.
Can you get
rid of the chat window there, Paul?
Exactly.
We can't.
We're under.
See.
You're right.
So
we're under 5 now.
Yeah,
and we're going to continue to move that lower.
Well, that's from 2020-ish, 2019. Yeah. I mean, but if you go back to 2015, it's like hundreds of Bitcoin, right? 1,000 Bitcoin.
This is just since COVID.
So,
this is just
fascinating.
COVID.
So it's fascinating. It's fascinating to visualize that. Somebody's going to win a Bitcoin 2025 ticket. So, Paul, do we have any final questions? Any final comments or thoughts? Are we all wrapped up?
There was a special request
What's
for you to tell them your favorite quote.
Oh, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome, right? Because everything is like incentives based. You look at government, if you look at business, if you look at so many things, I mean, people will capitalize on incentives. So if there is incentive, it's why we're seeing so much corruption in the government, especially, is right. Like, there's no incentive to stop the corruption. It's why education, for example, we talked about that today. It's why it's gotten so broken. It's why they keep raising prices at institutions, because the government is just backstopping it and paying it with shitty loans that are never going to get paid back, right? So there's no incentive for them to not raise prices, because it's like the taxpayer is the one getting fleeced. You and me are the ones getting screwed, right? While the elites, the elite of the elite who go to Harvard, essentially get to benefit from that, right? But that's true in government. One thing I want to bring up that I listened to today, which was really good. Pull up the All In Pod. They released an episode with Antonio Gracias today, I believe. See if you can find the All In Pod. It just popped up on my feed today. It's not the main one that they do every week, but it was a good episode. No, you're looking at all these different podcasts. You got to click in. It's the very first one. There it is, right there. Yeah. Let's see if they released it. Go down. Yeah, I think it's that one. There it is, the Antonio Gracias. Yeah, so if that's the full episode, it's only 30 minutes, 28 minutes, but fascinating listen of what's actually going on and what's not being reported. But basically, he talks about updates from Doge. He talks about the voter fraud that they've been finding. Like, he's basically saying, like, hey, this is just the tip of the iceberg. A lot of these illegal aliens that have come in have already registered. They've already voted. They basically are, like, hand-picking people and, like, checking it, which is, like, they're doing, like, 10 people a day, and they're just finding massive amounts of fraud. And he says that he thinks it's just the tip of the iceberg. Go up a little bit. He talks about fixing immigration. They kind of talk a little bit about talent acquisition for Doge, why they have such good talent, and talking about how immigration can potentially be fixed. So I want to give them a little plug. I got a lot of value from listening to that 30-minute clip today. So with that being said, anybody have any closing thoughts before we close out here?
Go Bitcoin.
Stack sats.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. And with that, it's a wrap.
The runway.